The nation is under siege. The nation is under siege.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Sunday night, and you know what that means? That means it is Divided We Stand, Sunday Night Live. You're in the right place, even if you don't know where you are. You're here now, and it's home for good, or at least for the next hour. If you're unfamiliar with this channel, this is Divided We Stand on YouTube. We ask that you subscribe and perhaps commiserate with us once a week, maybe twice. We're also on Facebook. We have a Facebook group page, Divided We Stand, very, very popular. So if you're on Facebook, come on over, join us. We're doing our part to fight Trump and the Republican agenda, or should we say the fascist agenda. Tonight we are broadcasting from Bridgeton, New Jersey via Arlington, Virginia, just outside of Washington. And at this point, I'd like to invite and greet my co-host, writer, podcaster, who the hell knows what he is. He's any moment he could be something different, but that is our David Price. Dave, how
Hey,
are you?
Brian. Well, good. And as most of our listeners know, we once were neighbors for a number of years, and we taught at the same high school, which you still are at. And ladies and gentlemen, I sometimes complain about Brian's operation of this show, but I think I have more proof of my point now. The British high school football team has been struggling for a few years, and they made one change. That one change is they changed the sports banker. The sports banker during the
In addition to the coach. But that's
losing
okay.
The sports banker was a person you're looking at right now, Brian Weinstein. And since he has stepped down, the team, who last year I believe did not win a game, this year is 3-0. So, I think there's a correlation, coincidence. I think not. And I just wonder what the effect would be if Brian would leave this show. But I don't know. And here we go. First comment from T-Bone takes us right into what we want to talk about.
Well, you tell me exactly. I mean, I am very unclear. I have just heard a couple whistles, and that was it.
Okay.
You sick?
First,
you sick? You have COVID?
No.
Bronchitis?
No.
Okay.
No. What happens
Smoker's
is
remorse?
No, it's been a number of years since I smoked. Okay. But anyway, so what do we know? Well, we don't know much, but in some ways we do know what happened, I suppose. It comes in dribs and drabs, and people get really upset now because they want the story right now. It happened, and they should know. Well, that's not the way it works. It appears. Now, notice I'm going to say this appears. Not sure. From what I could piece together before the show, that we know Donald Trump was playing golf on his golf course near Mar-a-Lago.
And that's not too unusual for him, just about every day.
No, but you know what I find interesting? Again, you're in the presidential race, and I'll come back, and he seems to be playing far more golf than he does racing to the White House. But we'll bring that up later in the show. So anyway, he was playing with some, not by himself. He had some people with him. One was described as a good friend. And apparently, which makes sense, the Secret Service is in two places. They're with him, on the hole that he's playing, right? And then they send an advance team to the next hole. And as they did, it's a little unclear, but apparently they spotted someone suspicious with a gun and some other things. And there may or may not have been a shot fired. although there were reports of gunshots, so who knows. This guy escaped, but now they're reporting, this is pretty cool, and this is something we all should strive for. Somebody noticed him running, and he got into, I don't know, black Nissan or whatever, and the person had presence of mind to take a picture of the car and the license plate, which he was able to give authorities. So apparently there's some conflicting. They have somebody in custody. They don't have somebody in custody. They have had one press conference already. They did show pictures of what they found at the site. Of course, it was an AK-47. The rifle of choice. So one thing that seems to be consistent.
Sure, it was an AK-47. It was an AR-15.
No,
I don't know.
AK. No, that's what they're saying. I mean, again,
okay. I believe you. Look,
this thing changes. By tomorrow morning, who knows? But I think one thing that will be different about this, if they do indeed have somebody in custody, that person is alive. So that'll be much different than the other assassination. Now, was this an assassination attempt? It's being labeled as so far. And of course,
by whom though? That's what I'm saying. By whom? Trump.
Reports of authorities saying they're treating it as an assassination attempt. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. There's also another report out of there that says no, it had nothing to do with Trump. It was gunshots by somebody else, but in that vicinity.
It would be interesting if the NRA would back this guy. And
well, they won't, Trump. Of course. Which does pose a dilemma. Maybe Trump will turn around and say, at least keep the guns away from people that'll shoot at me.
Right, because that's his mentality. Right.
Yeah, but so we'll wait, and anybody who's got a purpose of guy that he's not a Dem. I get
you hope, you hope, because they'll just explode that if he is.
Let's go back. We'll go back and forth
because that's all the Republicans would care about. Just as long as they would actually like this to happen, so they could look at the rolls. Oh, Dem, they're murderers. Let's get it going.
Well, of course, it doesn't matter because they will make up the story anyway, right? So it will be a hit job that Kamala put out, or Biden is angry.
Right.
Who knows? But if we go back and forth, there's still so many unanswered questions about the first assassination attempt.
We will never know. At least, maybe not in our lifetime.
Well, I think you're right.
Unless the where he was treated gave up the information. We get a lot more information from the doctors.
Look, every medical person I know that I've talked to, which is a sum total of about 3 maybe, said there's no way he could have been shot. A bullet could not have pierced his ear and not caused more damage than it did. So that leaves it. Was it a fragment of a bullet? Was it a fragment of glass? And there'll just always be these unanswered questions. But of course, his thing is, I took a bullet for you. That's what he's saying. Right. Now, let's get the quote to show how he does it, because I'm sure this will follow, tomorrow. Trump said, in the debate, I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things they say about me. Okay, that's the mug already. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Elsie Stefanik, some of his groupie girls have taken to X and Truth Social and wherever else they hang out, saying, this was an assassination attempt. We got to do something. This has to be stopped. Tim Walz comes out, being the guy he is. He just says, my wife and I are very glad, that Mr. Trump is safe. Violence should have no place in American life, and they're right. But Trump will play this, no matter what way it turns out.
Right.
We know that.
Immediately, almost. It won't even matter what the facts are.
No.
He would just do it.
Well, no, I although maybe, and this is a big maybe, I don't know. If he believes that the first assassination attempt was real, and if he believes this one was real, he maybe get a little gun shy. I would be, okay? I would definitely be. Now, that's not to say that the first one was a put-up job. I don't think it was. I think what happened there, 2 things I believe, and just I believe that. I wouldn't try to convince anybody else. I think the shooter in the first assassination attempt simply wanted to make a reputation for himself.
Right.
It has been said that he was looking at about equal looks at Biden's schedule, or Trump's, he's looking at both, and of course Trump shows up in his city. Wow, here we're gonna go. And my guess is that he wanted to be somebody. Whether it goes all the way back, are we keeping you up?
Yeah, I'm trying here.
It goes all the way back to the fact that the gun club wouldn't let
Pay
him in.
Pay attention to the camera, not to this guy here.
You know what? So, yeah, ignore. It's like you should have ignored the Wizard of Oz.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Because you are the Wizard of Oz.
It's a comedy night tonight.
Oh, yeah, it's good. Well, but what I would say, and if we keep going, you know what, Anthony? I'm not. This is one of those times when we just don't know. I mean, I could tell you, no, you're wrong. I could say, yes, you're right. We can just do whatever we want because we just don't have enough information. On the first attempt, there hasn't been a closure at all, right?
Right.
And just some unanswered questions, like why, maybe not a major thing, why was the body cremated the next day? Now, some religions have it that you're supposed to be done within 24 hours. I don't know that. Another one.
Yeah, and even some don't even have, a lot don't have cremation as
yeah. Another thing that strikes me as odd is the parents, and the other thing another thing that strikes me as odd is the parents procured one of the top 5 lawyers in the country.
Amazing.
So is that who's funding that? Was it
not
there?
It's not them, that's for sure.
And they were talking about some of the sophisticated equipment that the first assassin had, or we'll call him first, assassin, I guess, attempted assassination. Where to get the money for some? I mean, so there's just, and what I do, and the other fascinating thing is it's kind of going away, right?
Yes.
There was an attempt on the president.
And forgotten so quickly, right.
There was
in any other case would have been out there for, in the history.
Now what? Why? Why? So now we got another one. Now what, again, just early reports, and this is interesting too, I think it's something, the Secret Service probably playing CYA, covering its ass again, although in this case, they did their job, obviously, said, well, if Mr. Trump were still the president, we would close off the entire golf course or seal it off. But because he's not, we don't have enough men to do that, which makes sense. I mean, I don't know, how many Secret Service agents you think are assigned to him? It can't be more than half a dozen, I wouldn't think, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe somebody out there knows. I don't know. I don't. So anyway, what we have is, as we kind of joked in our special show the other day, things change so rapidly. Things change so rapidly that we can barely keep up with them. And I mean big news, not just little things, right? There can't be any October surprise because we're having a surprise every 24 hours.
Which might be a good thing in the long run.
In the long run. So let's get to a few facts before we go off in the deep end with our friends Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and the new entree.
And remember, J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio. I mean, just the sound of that just makes you cringe.
And Laura Loomer and other assorted ones, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert. Of course, the regular cast of characters, right? If you continue, let's see what Gary says. He and I have talked a little bit about this. If you continue to ignore the Alex Jones podcast, which dealt with killing Trump being the best way to begin the war and defeat Dems, have you even seen the podcast? I'll put it back up. Mm-hmm. The kid would have been a target. Gary, you may be right. Alex Jones did indeed, kind of call for that. Was this kid, we would need to know, was he a regular listener of Alex Jones? And guess what?
Well, that's a case, Dave. Like, I understand Gary's point. It wouldn't really matter much anyway, because it's kind of like somebody who tries to shoot somebody but misses. I mean, we don't call him a murderer, but in a sense, he's every bit the murderer that the murderer who actually does hit somebody is. So Jones is still guilty. I
don't disagree with that at all. What we have, and we'll talk at length tonight, we have people, whether they are supposedly journalists, Alex Jones, or presidential candidates like Donald Trump. There's no filter on what they would say, and we're beginning to see what happens. Let's see. Let's let that thought sit in. Okay, so let's just get a few facts out of the way, and then we'll go to what all we have right now is speculation,
right?
Because of the weirdness of the election. So here are some things I put together post debate to kind of end the debate. Okay, these are the facts we know about the debate. 67.1 million viewers tuned in. That's a pretty good number. Good. Yeah, they said it was one of the higher rated debates, and of course that's not unusual. You have Donald Trump, who is a god. He's like the car wreck you can't take your eyes off of, or he's your god, whichever side you're on. And you had somebody who I think people legitimately didn't know enough about, and wanted to see. Mm-hmm. Now, the CNN poll, final poll conducted, said that Kamala, Vice President Harris, won the debate 63 to 37%. And now there's a couple of significant things about that, I think. One is we have to face the fact, Brian, that somewhere between probably 37 and 40% of the Americans are going to vote, are going to support, we don't know how they're going to vote, are going to support Donald Trump no matter what. No Correct. Matter what. Now, the good thing is no president has ever won with 40% of the vote.
Correct.
So even though that's scary, even though it makes me really agree with David Bowie, when he had his song, I'm afraid of Americans. I'm kind of afraid of those people. And T-Bone raises a really good point there too. And maybe we'll come back to that because that's kind of interesting. I hadn't really thought about it.
He's seen as a threat,
Yeah, but T-Bone, that's a really insightful kind of thing. Yeah. I had, I'm supposed to be doing some thinking here, and I didn't. So I want to ponder that while I'm giving out these facts. Now, nationally, the best numbers right now seem to be Harris with 47% and Trump with 42%. But that's nationally. And remember two things: we don't know
about the swing states.
We don't care a thing about polls right now. We shouldn't. And that, as you just pointed out, Brian, there's only 7, at most 11 states that count. All right, everything else is meaningless. Like Alabama is going to vote for Trump. New Jersey is going to vote.
Indiana is going to vote for Trump.
It seems like Virginia now, Trump has pulled out. He's making no effort here. So he has conceded Virginia, I think, at this point.
But so what is he going to do in Pennsylvania, though? Aside from limiting the Philadelphia vote, how is he going to?
I think there's a number of things. You just said the big one. Try to limit wherever possible.
That's where the biggest bang. Thinking like an evil person. That's your biggest.
There's no question.
His voters are going to come out.
I don't see any way someone wins the Electoral College without having Pennsylvania. I really don't, unless it was a sweep of everything. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But if it's close, you got to have Pennsylvania because it's the largest.
But we do have a Republican governor, and that's a real help.
You mean a Democratic governor?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. We all make those mistakes. That's not those kind of mistakes. I just wanted. But
no, I'm glad you corrected me. I don't want screwing up.
Yeah, so that is good. That is because the governor is the chief executive officer of the state. So there's some things in play there. Now, a couple more. We know what Harris got in the 24 hours after the debate. She collected $47.1 million. And that was from 600,000 donors. That's a pretty substantial chunk of change, although the costs are being eaten up. We come to a point where now there are people saying, is a college education really worth the cost, right? Mm-hmm. And I always use my own experience. In 1973, I graduated Villanova University. And paid $7,500 for my last semester there. That was living on campus, room and board, tuition, not books, okay, but everything else. Today, that is $75,000.
I think if it's a professional degree, you could say yes, but if it's not a professional degree of some sort,
but even there, Brian, that's if you have to take loans the whole time.
I understand.
No, I agree.
law, or if you're going to be some physician or
I
scientist.
understand that. But I'm just saying people can legitimately question that now.
Yes, now you
can. Not be. Yeah, I mean, it used to be, no, of course it is. Of course it is.
And not only that, because we're going into specialization in the future, where, instead of having, a surgeon to do a liver transplant, you'll probably have a machine or some person who's just taught to do that one thing, and they take care of it in the future.
And so, but then we have the same thing with the money spent on elections. Is it really worth it? I mean, in the end, well, it doesn't matter because we're spending it, and that's what it takes. And you're putting the ads out. Now, I would assume, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, that there aren't a lot of political ads in New Jersey right now. Is that correct? Presidential.
Right. I see things on MSNBC, but that's no.
No, I'm talking about
in New Jersey. I haven't seen too much of it.
No, I haven't seen any in Virginia. I said because they're the ones. But man, if you're in Pennsylvania right now, which of course could get a spillover because Philadelphia stations come into Jersey, but.
By the way, can I mention this, Dave?
Sure.
You're talking about, the ads. I find something very peculiar, especially with the Republican ads, and that is they don't put anything about the Republican Party. They just say, "I'm for this," so you don't know if they're a Democrat or Republican. It seems like they're trying to fool you because they know that there's a stain there on the Republican Party.
Oh,
so
yeah. Well, Well, let's see. Well, you don't come out and say I'm Donald Trump's boy, right? I mean, you just don't do that. And
not
really,
anymore.
Well, you can't. I mean, Donald Trump.
I mean, you can pull that off in West Virginia. I can't say that. But
there is no Republican Party, and let's throw up why I feel safe in saying that. 220 of the closest, of the closest people who worked with Donald Trump are not supporting him. 44 of the 44 cabinet members and high-ranking officials, 40 are not supporting him. Dick Cheney, who was, when he rode over Baby Bush, he was the Republican Party. His daughter, Liz Cheney, who had the most conservative voting record in Congress before she was iced out by the Trumpublicans. And this week, to me, is the biggest of all. Not that it means anything in terms of votes, but yesterday, George Will, who, in my estimation, is the best conservative mind in the country when it comes to writing and putting his position down. I may be a little biased because
he just doesn't have the name like he used to.
Because
70s
and
90s.
Because the Trumpers can't read, Brian.
No, plus he's older too.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, I think that's true, but I mean, they're not intellectuals. George Will is an intellectual, okay? Right. But for him to say, not that I'm not voting for Trump, not that I'm sitting this one out, I am supporting Kamala Harris. To me, that is earth-shattering. Right. Not in terms of what it does, not like Taylor Swift, who we'll come back to in a moment. Now, let's take that moment right now. So the next day, right, Taylor Swift comes out in support, less than 24 hours after, of Kamala Harris. I think we all knew that was going to happen, so there's no surprise there. It was a question of timing. And I would be interested to know, I think, this is just my guess, that timing was already set before the debate began. And why do I say that? Think about it this way. If Kamala had lost, which I don't think she expected to, but she could, that would offset the loss, right? If she won, that is, to grab a cliche, the icing on the cake. Now, why do we say that? Okay. Again, the numbers. This is the last number we'll use tonight, because after this, we go back in that world of eerie speculation. In a period of 24 hours after she endorsed Kamala and also put a link on to vote.gov, which is the official site where you go to figure out about voting, 405,999 people clicked on her vote.gov link. And you say, well, how do you know it was? Because they can track that because her link was separate than anybody else's link. And that, in that same period prior to that, they were getting an average of 30,000 a day. So certainly that shows enthusiasm, if nothing else. Do they come out and vote? Hopefully. Are they in the right states? Hopefully. Have they been identified? Absolutely. So overall it was continued to be a good week.
By the way, I might just interject in a second here, Dave, with what Veg was saying. We're just pure speculation here, but do you think that the larger reason that Cheney came out was because of the attacks on his daughter?
I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think there's any question about that.
If it hadn't been for his daughter, I'm not so sure he would have done that.
But that's like saying, if Bill Russell hadn't been on the Celtics,
right.
The Sixers would have won a lot of champions. I mean, I know, yeah, we're playing the game, but I think you're absolutely right. Well, let's put it like this: if it were my daughter and somebody came out, I would not be happy about it.
Right.
And that's something else we need to talk about, if not this show or the other, is how families are getting so much involved. And there's always, that's been a continuing thing. That wasn't, once upon a time, you just didn't touch the families, right? They were untouched. Sort of like the mafia code.
Right.
Go after the guy, but not the family. But we don't have that. All right, so let's look at Trump's world. A couple things. First of all, that they got the nickname Weird. Gave me a couple T-shirts, so that's nice. But weird is apt. But as we've said before, there are two kinds of weird: kind of funny weird and dangerous weird. They are dangerous weird. But I think there may be another name that really, put yourself in, you're Donald Trump now. You ready, Brian?
Right.
This is what they're calling him now in official releases from the Trump Waltz campaign. The smallest man who ever lived. I like that. Why do I like that? Because it gets to the heart.
Yeah, because he's a megalomaniac, and it's the worst
Correct.
thing you can have to
and he's also very worried about his small dick size, thanks to Stormy Daniels' revelations. So that gets to him on on multiple levels. So I'll be interested to see if that sticks. They just put it on there yesterday. Okay, now let's just look at what else Trump has done this week and see if that weird thing applies. All right, so he starts his rally in one of his rallies. In fact, I guess it was Las Vegas. It was Nevada, so I'm assuming it was Las Vegas. I don't know. He says he's trying to pump up the crowd, with his whatever that dance is where he looks like he's jerking two people off or whatever.
What the fuck?
He says we've got a big Latin star, Nikki Jam. She's so hot, and a guy with a beard walks out, and he was. Nikki Jam is a guy. Now, what the hell is up with that? You don't even know who's endorsing you,
right?
You don't know what's is he sexually confused?
And he said something Abdul with the we're negotiating with the Taliban.
Right.
Abdul.
I mean, that doesn't reinforce.
I mean, at least he didn't say Muhammad. Like he would have
then it's hard to pick my favorite. Every week the man does unbelievable things. So he's at his golf course. Did you see that? The end of his talk. He did a press conference.
I know he did a press conference. He answered like 4 questions. And one of them was a softball.
This is the ending. You ready, Brian? This is the ending. He's standing there, and of course he can't shut up. So he points out to an island that's off the shore, because this is all kind of obviously on the shoreline, his golf course. He says, look at Hawaii. Let me do that again. Look at Hawaii. Can you imagine living and golfing here and looking out every day and seeing the beautiful Hawaiian islands? It's unbelievable. Fuck yeah, it's unbelievable, because it wasn't Hawaii, you dumb, stupid ignoramus. Really? So he doesn't know the sex of people that are doing it. He has no basis for geography. Now, Brian, I'm going to ask you.
How the hell did he get accepted to Wharton School?
He bought his way in. That's been proven. He bought his way in. He got...
Well, I wouldn't be going to Wharton anymore if I was looking for a...
Well, before we attack Wharton, 2 things, and I've looked at that. One is, Wharton wasn't that difficult to get into in those days. It really wasn't. Yeah, I mean, no, because nobody wanted... The people weren't going into business like they are now. Right? Hey, Judy. But that's one. And secondly, there's always a Donald Trump. But we do know for a fact two things at that. We know from anecdotal evidence that he did not take his SATs.
I would believe that.
He paid someone to do it, and that's been proven by people who were in the SAT room with him, who knew him. I don't know about his GREs, so I assume it was the same with the GREs. And and we know that he has threatened legal action if any of his grades are leaked. And so he has a closed,
It'd be funny if he had like an IQ of like 70 or something like that,
Well, yeah. So anyway, but we know that. So, but we know, and if it just stopped there, okay, maybe we wouldn't say much, but we come along, and of course he has picked up the report of J.D. Vance about Haitians and Springfield. We'll do a little bit more with that later, but basically, here's what he does. He said, he picks it up. Yeah, this is a terrible thing, and we're gonna deport him, and we're gonna send him back to Venezuela. There's a problem with that. Haitians don't live in Venezuela. Again, you ignoramus. Now, there's Lauren Boebert's pet project is now the Venezuelans who are taking over, Aurora, Colorado, which isn't happening either. So we have two places in the country that are under siege from immigrants, neither of which are happening. But you pick your. But Trump, of course, gets it wrong. No, I don't think anything else will equal this, though. If it does, I'll do the broadcast shirtless and pantless. If he gets something weirder than this. Now, Brian, how long have you been teaching?
Since
county or
1984.
So that's
40 years.
40 years.
This month coming up, October, it'll be 40 years.
Okay, so I would consider you to be an expert on teaching. You'd have to be after 40 years.
I've been in the room that long. I should figure out something.
All right. So Donald Trump comes along, direct quote here. Your child goes to the school and they don't even call you and they change the sex of your child. Let's do that again. Your child goes to the school and they don't even call you and they change the sex of your child. Donald Trump. We don't know whether you like blowjobs or not. I think you do, probably, probably nothing wrong with that. But I don't do that. But, your vice president supposedly had sex with a couch, which he didn't do, okay? Which he didn't do. But people believe... Well, I don't... Yeah, but the irony of the thing is you believe he is a guy. If anybody's going to have sex with a couch...
Keep saying it. Eventually, I'm going to believe it,
Well, what I'm going to do is offer Mr. Trump a deal. If he can prove to me one child who went off to school as a boy or a girl and came back less than 8 hours later, another sex, I will have sex with a couch on national TV. Okay? So, Donald, if you want to play that game, I'm up for that. Sounds like because it's impossible. Brian, 40 years. Did you ever see a sex change take place in the nurse's office?
Nope.
What about the gym?
Nope.
Cafeteria?
Nope.
Classroom?
Nope.
Parking lot?
Nothing ever close to
main office?
Nope.
Guy, why? And how? How? And this is to everybody who's supporting Donald Trump. None of whom are, well, maybe the one guy comes on tonight, but none of whom are listening to us right now and probably will ever hear this. But how do you follow someone who makes a statement so outlandish? Now, it's one thing to make these statements. It's another when you have ramifications. And Donald Trump has never learned that even though he's an absolute, we don't know whether he has dementia, Alzheimer's, is just ignorant, stupid, doesn't care, all of the above, none of the above, whatever.
Believe me, he'll be cremated when he's gone too. They'll hide everything about him.
The idea of it is that
only
a man who would say
the
that,
mortician will know.
I mean, to say something, and you're going to back him? Well, that says one of two things to me. One is you have an issue that is so important to you that you don't care about anything else.
And that is an issue for many of them.
Abortion, it might be. It might be guns rights. Evangelicals, there are a wide number of evangelicals who believe this is the end of times, and Trump, while not the Antichrist, is the harbinger of it.
Right.
I've seen some interesting things. Crazy. The mark of the beast is being interpreted as "Make America Great Again." The mark of the beast will be on their forehead. I mean, it's just anything's out there, right? But
we have enough evil that we don't have to get into biblical philosophy. And
I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's what
ridiculous.
They do. That's what they do. So, but I don't see how, unless you're that, or the second reason you're for him is because he magnifies and amplifies and acts on your hatred, your fear, your anger. There's not one human characteristic the man demonstrates, and there's not one positive thing that he says. Everything is dystopian, cataclysmic on one hand, but whatever well, that's why, Gary, we're talking about public schools. Private schools, they call it. Say, hey, listen, I know Bobby, but Bobby's a girl's name too, so we just made Bobby a girl. Yeah. That's
shit. There was.
I like when.
Roosevelt.
No, that's true.
We had a nice history lesson today, folks.
Well, that's part of it, and that's what's nice about this. I'm going to do a brief side with a learned audience like we have.
That's why we say it. Join the discussion.
Two very good things happen when we go off the rails. They'll let us know, and that's a good thing. Or if we don't know, we've asked, and they can, and they add to it so much, as you just pointed out. Trump sent him a check, cashing place to cash checks using casino money. Judy, the man, I wouldn't be surprised if the man didn't do his first dirty deal at age 5 or 6. I mean, I think, and it was interesting, I read an article this week by an expert who said definitely, I thought this was interesting, Trump is not a sociopath. He's a psychopath. And the distinction is a sociopath can be created. A psychopath has something in their DNA and mind inherent. And Trump has it. Trump may be both, and you can be both. And then to cop it off something we just said, this is so middle schoolish. I hate Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
First of all, who cares? Secondly, do you realize that you just dug yourself in deeper? You certainly didn't win with women where you're getting creamed by Harris. And that leads me to the most disturbing thing I read this week. And if you start thinking about it, it may well be true. Trump has decided he doesn't want to win.
So he wants the war.
What he wants is to push it. All this money is not being deposited in his camp. Is his campaign.
I got you. Well, so, I'm cool with that. As long as he loses, let those bastards get the money.
But what he doesn't understand is people. He's not going to be able to call them off, right? Sort of like a Frankenstein. Frankenstein creates
it's
a
out
monster,
of the box already.
Right? It's out of the box. So there will be. I hate to say this. I am 100% convinced that there will be violence. Well, there's already been violence. Okay, apparently two attempts on Trump's life, and the rhetoric is way too high right now. To put any, and Trump could have come out and said, "Look, we were wrong." Now Vance goes on the shows, today, Sunday shows, and Dana Bash gets him. Dana did a great job, and I think it's really interesting. If I could give a shout out to my colleagues,
it's about time that some people started coming back on these people.
I agree. She does, Vaj. She does. I think it was kind of like somebody had to break the ice with that, and David Muir and Liz did. And it's been being done other places, but now suddenly, it's just too blatant to do. And of course, you saw what Trump's reaction was to the two moderators. He said they should be fired, and then ABC doors should be shuttered. And don't anybody kid themselves. He will do that if he gets to be president, if he can. But so anyway, so Vance is going on, and he admitted He said, and I'm paraphrasing this quote. I should have written it down, but I'm so pissed at him. He said something like, look, yeah, okay. But if I need to create stories, that's what he said. If I need to create stories talking about what he's talking about with the Haitians, to get the media to recognize the problems Americans are having, then I will make up stories. What? Put that back up. Oh yeah,
it's all together. The whole thing is.
Well, we understand
together.
that we're very violent. Yeah, I mean, you can't separate one from the other. But what you can look at, you can fault the NRA for saying what it says. You can Donald Trump for upping the ante. You can look at his supporters. I mean, can you really just sit back for a moment, everyone, and just think about this? Think about this quartet, which right now apparently is the brain trust. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Robert Kennedy Jr., and Laura Loomer. Find me 4 more. And somebody said earlier, I forget which one of our viewers said, amazing. Dick Cheney was the Darth Vader evil of his period. And suddenly he's now that way. Well, I'm certainly no fan of Lauren Let Me Grab You in a Theater, Boebert, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. But Laura Loomer makes them look sort of, maybe, not okay, but not as bad as they could be. Now, they're involved in this war. And so, I'm going to break my own rule and talk about things that I have no knowledge about, literally. But one of the big stories, speculative stories this week, are Donald Trump and Laura Loomer more than just associates, right? And that was based a lot. I don't know if you saw the picture, Brian.
Yes, I think he's right about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was a picture of, they were kind of playing cuddly, but, if you were just friends, I mean, it could have been that, but of course it was taken out. The cry is, where's Melania? Where's Melania? Where's Melania? We don't know. And Trump, was asked that question directly. He kind of phoned around. Well, I don't know. Well, Laura's a supporter of mine. And, and because she's a supporter of mine, I guess I have to, whatever, right? She did post right before we went on the air. She's headed down. So everybody, she's got it under control. She's headed down to find out what's going on with the assassination attempt. So Laura's on the job. But what happens is, and just some of the things, if you're not familiar with Laura Loomer, just in the past week she did, because when she's attacked, she comes back very much like Trump. So your favorite South Carolinian 9/11 denier. Think about this, Brian. She denied anything was happened. It was and he takes her to the 9/11 memorial ceremony, and she stands by his side. You talk about disrespecting everyone who died on that day and every single New Yorker who helped put that city back together. I mean, that's a bigger spit.
It's tasteless. It's absolutely tasteless.
That's a bigger spit than the Hawktua girl. Yeah, they do look like Ichabod. I actually posted something today of Laura Trump and her and Laura Loomer and April Guilfoyle, and there's just really I don't. And you know what's sad, Brian? We shouldn't make fun of people.
And by the way, we don't. We're not here to make fun of people's faces and stuff like that.
Well, yeah,
but
I am.
It just seems like these people, they're hideous in their own way, and then it just shows their phoniness.
There's something to be said, and an alien might come down and look at a picture of them not a long time ago, right? I mean, I don't look like I did when I was, 17 years old or whatever. But look at them not that long ago, and look at what they are now. And I will make fun of them because you got to stop that Botox, kids. You're making
it is gross. I mean, Botox in general. It just, I don't get it. I don't know why. I mean, I understand you want to look younger, but that to me, especially maybe for a while, it works, but then after that,
it does work. It does work, and even the best. I think two of the best women I didn't live with them, but in my generation, or a little bit before my generation became Dolly Parton, Jane Fonda. I think they're, and even they've crossed that, but they didn't cross it for 45 years.
Madonna's done.
Loomer, yes, she called three great women of color. Absolutely, Judy. And let's see, since you bring up the racists, Judy, let's look and see if it just does stop with black people. But I don't think that's the case. Oh, here's what she said that sparked the fight. Wow, with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said three things about this. She said, if Kamala Harris wins, the White House will smell like curry. The speeches will be facilitated by a call center. And the only customer satisfaction you'll get at the White House is that no one will understand who is speaking to them. A little bit racist there, don't you think?
Oh, it's
interesting.
Horrible. It's vicious.
Yes. And so we know that. Well, I guess, people say Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, I like curry too. I love curry. Mm-hmm. The idea is Marjorie Taylor Greene, whether she did have a moment of conscience or just would rather have Don to herself, she comes back and she says, Laura Loomer should not be anywhere near this campaign. She does not speak for the Republican Party. She does not speak for anybody. She's a whatever. And so Laura Loomer, being the nice person she is, she gets on a talk show or internet talk show, says, yeah, well, forget Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's a bitch. She says she spreads truth, but she just spreads her legs. Okay, that's, okay. But then she comes back about Harris and says this, and I'm paraphrasing here. We all know that she sucked dick to get where she is. But not all women have to do that. Like, I don't suck dick to get where I am. Laura, you may be sucking dick right now to get where you are. We don't know. Mm-hmm. So my point is, look, I don't know how you feel, Brian, but I'm disgusted with about 40% of Americans. There's just no reason for them, the MAGA, to be like they are, that I can see. I hope you're right, Ichabod.
I would think it's going to be closer to 7 or 8 as before.
But you know what? It's interesting, though. I said on the Thursday night show that we have for anybody who didn't listen or wasn't here, Divided We Stand has a sister-brother group now that I'm part of in D.C. called In Black and White, talking about issues in a divided America. So it's a very different kind of format, but it's similar goals and things. And we had our first program that we sponsored at Busboys and Poets here, and it was a debate party. And of course, everybody was pro Kamala, and they got all that good thing. But if you'd asked there, everybody's energy was high. But I talked to a couple people down here who, pretty politically astute and out there, and they kind of agree with Ichabod. They think Trump will not win one of the 7 swing states. So, none of us know, right? None of us know. As I say, somebody put that about the October surprise back up for a minute, will you, Brian, please?
That's Franz.
Yeah, Franz. I don't even know. I don't think there could be what could surprise us? Alien invasion? I'm not putting it down. Normally, that's what it happens every day. You know what I mean? There's just some kind of almost, not every day, but something will happen. Now,
I'm still more concerned about after the election. I think that's your surprise. They have the flow chart.
This is look, as I said, there's going to be violence. There'll be violence between now and the election of some type, okay? Whether it's another assassination attempt, whatever, right? I'm expecting some violence on election day. I expect more violence if the election doesn't go the way MAGA wants. And when we get to that point, who the hell knows? will it get as bad as the movie Civil War? Will it get as bad as the fall documentary that just came out about what happens when you have another January 6th?
It's good to see you again, Franz.
Yeah, it is good, Franz. Always good to see old friends. But okay, do you think, Brian? And again, do you think Trump? Is there any way Kamala can force or Trump will do a second debate, or you just think that ship has sailed?
I think he'll do it if he has the right conditions. I mean, I think that he's pushing for something like Fox, that type of moderator. Even if it was like Brett Baird or something like that, who's kind of more reasonable than the other idiots. But I think there's no reason for him to have another debate because it's going to be the same thing unless he has somebody else doing his dirty work, and that would be Fox.
Okay, so now put your cap on backwards. Then you just had it. You're the Harris campaign. Do you accept the challenge?
I think you have to weigh out. I think you have to weigh out dealing with the issue of dealing with these racists and lunatics going after you, and it's not just Trump now, versus looking weak. But I think most people understand why she would turn it down if Fox was, going to moderate the debate. I personally think she shouldn't. I think just you got your win. Don't keep. It's like Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier should never have fought again. He should have just won in 72, and you've got it, and just leave it like that. When you come back like Fury, and you're eventually going to lose.
Yep, I think that's a brilliant analogy.
I mean, I'll say that. Like even Mike Tyson, you fight Mike Tyson a billion times. One day he may trip, and your fist will, hit his temple, and then he'll get knocked out. Eventually, something's going to happen. The wrong thing's going to happen.
Okay.
I mean, I'm exaggerating, of course, but
no, you're not.
I see no reason for her to do it.
I think you're absolutely right. Yes. Anybody, I'm sure you all have, but please encourage people who haven't made up their mind one way or the other. If you have anybody, well, let me ask you that, Brett. Do you know anybody personally who hasn't made up their mind?
Oh, no, that's a great question. I have not met anybody except. I do have one. I have one cousin who's very, very pro-Trump. He's an asshole.
Right.
Haven't talked
to him in a year. I
but
like
his sister. She will. She's not a political person. She's not. She has a lot of competence in her academic thought. So she'll tell me, I want to believe you, but I have friends that are just as vitriolic about Trump, and I don't know where to go with it. So I think there are people like one of my cousins.
Yeah, but not many. I mean, I'm just saying.
They are so influenced by people around them that they're like jumping beans. They don't know which way they want to go. And there are not many of them, but they're out there. And they're enough to make a difference in certain states.
Never debate on Fox. Trump also said he'd do NBC. I think Gary's got good. I mean, I think Gary's got great instincts there. A part of me wants to see, a selfish part of me wants to see her beat him down again, even worse. But I don't think it's wise to do it. I think, unless the situation changes right now, concentrate on what you got. You go do your thing. Tim Walz does his thing. And every day I have to say, I admire Tim Walz more. I think he is. Remember the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington?
Yes.
He's kind of like that, like almost a purist. Mm-hmm. And what people don't realize, I was talking to some people down here far more knowledgeable than I am in politics. And there was a guy called Robert LaFollette, was out from Wisconsin, and he ran for president a couple times. But he was a really staunch Democrat socialist. And Tim is kind of in that vein, right? He just says the right things. And I mean, it's not even speaking. So I think the two best speakers out there, I mean, in terms of what gets on, Pete Buttigieg for the intellectual. I mean, he's right there. And Tim Walz for the everyman.
I think, Emily, we would just have to beat him the right way. I mean.
Yeah, and of course, we make jokes, or people make jokes. A friend of mine said today, he wanted to open a school would advertise, people who want to shoot at Trump, please come to my school and I'll teach you to shoot better, or whatever. We shouldn't want the violence. But again, I don't feel bad. I mean, I feel bad for America because we're a violent society, all right? But I don't feel bad for Donald Trump. Anything that happens to him, he brought on himself.
Yeah, he brought it himself. He's earned it.
That happens. Yep. And interesting enough, Global, I think she exudes that kind of confidence where Trump doesn't, I mean, I can see Trump cowering, behind Melania if she were on stage with him.
Right.
He portrays himself as this, vigorous man. But before we sign off, which is coming up, the other comparison, and I want to look more into it, is, we hear this comparison about Trump and Hitler, and it's not. But you got to go beyond Hitler. He had Goring, which you point out all the time. He had Goring, he had Goebbels.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Hitler came to power is the possibility with Trump, and he's a demagogue just like Hitler.
He does. So in other words, yes, I don't think he's Adolf Hitler.
And Hitler did. But I'll say this: Hitler did serve in World War One.
No,
Trump would not. They're different people. I'm not making Hitler sound good at all. Believe me.
Oh no.
But he's got a little different temperament.
But I told someone today, I said, if you really want to understand, go to the Holocaust Museum and walk through it and see how many echoes. You know how I say when history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. So find the rhymes, and they're there. Whether it's treating large segments of people as beasts. And I thought somebody else made an interesting comparison. I wish I'd made it or thought. They said one of the differences is, but it's it's a difference, but it turns out the same. Hitler was able to unite the Germans, or enough Germans, that the Jews controlled everything. That was part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, they have everything.
And they
Trump is going the other way. You have nothing because the Mexicans have taken your jobs. So it's still economics, right? But on one side, it was they're controlling. On this side, you can't even get into the thing. So it's the same thing.
By the way, I wanted to mention this. This is kind of an offshoot. I don't know if you've seen this. I've never been to that museum, but I
Holocaust?
do know. Right, but I do know there's a small area there where they have the story of Rudy Ball, and I think that is interesting. There's two stories, but I'll go into the one. Rudy Ball was the best hockey player in Europe during the 1930s. By far, he was the only one who could have come over to the United States and played and been competitive. Right. He was that fast. He was Jewish. So he got out of Germany. His parents stayed. He got out of Germany before the 36 Olympics. The Winter Olympics were in Germany too. Mm-hmm. And the German team was not a great team at all, but they were very competitive with him. So the German team refused to play unless Rudy Ball played for that team because they had no chance without him.
Right.
And Hitler let it happen. Now they also had a high jumper in the Summer Olympics who was Jewish, and she had tied for the world record. They would not let her, of course, compete. But Ball was allowed to compete, and he said, "I'll do it under one condition, that you let my parents go," which they agreed to. They let his parents go. And then he ended up going to South Africa. He played hockey a little bit in the 40s and maybe early 50s. But it was just a strange thing because it was one instance where they bonded together for an individual who was Jewish, and they needed him. And Hitler wanted to see Germany do well in the Olympics, even in 36 with, they tried to make it look like Jews weren't persecuted. Jesse Owens was there and all that. So that was a very strange Olympics with Rudy Ball playing. Now, they ended up losing Germany, but he scored almost all their goals. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of a sad thing because he had to, give himself up in a certain sense. But you do what you do.
And very interesting.
And most Jews don't even know that, by the way. That's not something that every Jew knows. It's a small thing that people just pass by.
But it's a very telling thing. It tells a lot about human nature and the times. And
then he accepted to do it too. You would think you're going to actually play for this monster, with the swastika on your uniform or something. But he did it.
Well, it worked. I mean, he got his parents out, right?
I think they got out. You know what? I'm not sure that
Okay,
that actually
but
happened.
but
I'll
that
have
was
to.
the
You
deal.
could look it up,
No,
folks.
I'll look
Rudy.
it up.
It's
No.
Rudiball.
Right.
Rudy Ball.
You know. All right. So the clock on the wall says it's about that time.
Right.
But before you go, Brian, just another question, and everybody else. This is to everyone out there. Tomorrow, I assume we'll hear Trump speak on the assassination. Right.
He doesn't shut up, so I would say you're absolutely right. He will definitely
Now,
speak.
what do you think he'll say? I have no idea.
I think, why doesn't he go all the way? He'll just say the Democrats are trying to kill me.
Very real possibility.
Well, why not? If you're a liar, why don't you just lie all the way? That's what he's going to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm at a point now where I have no idea. What he's going to do. I just think that, unfortunately, no matter what he chooses to do, there will be two things come from it.
You're welcome, Judy.
Yeah. God forgives, so there's that. Global, that assumes, that there is a God. And I could understand somebody saying, if there's a God, why would you have, well, of course, Hitler, but even why would you have a Trump? I mean, think about how many deaths he has caused, whether it's COVID, whether it's now, there will be immigrant deaths. I don't see how in Aurora, which is Venezuelan population, or how in Springfield, and even if there's not, in Springfield they've canceled schools, they've canceled government meetings. They're living, it's just, and for something that J.D. Vance. Oh, and the last thing, and I meant to say this earlier, but I'm not. They've traced it down finally. They did trace down where the story came from, Brian. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they have traced it down. Reporters getting to do a little bit better job. It was from a Facebook post from a woman I don't think she was in Cincinnati, but I think it was a suburb of Cincinnati, so she was in Ohio. And she misunderstood what they were saying, this person was saying. And she just jumped right on it. And now she's saying, mea culpa, mea magna culpa. Right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. But the lesson there is for all of us, myself included, be somewhat judicious and careful about what you post, just because there's so much misinformation. And the other thing that happened, it seemed absurd because Trump said dogs and cats, they're eating the dogs or eating
and
the
pets.
cats.
He said pets too,
and eating the pets of the people that live there. Then he added a couple of days later, he added geese. They were eating the geese from the park. And there is a picture of a black man bringing 2 geese with him, right? And that's what they used. He was a worker for the city who was bringing injured geese in from the park. So what they were able to do is take something that's, very good thing and pervert it. And Trump has that ability. I call it kind of the King Midas touch in reverse. Everything he touches turns to shit. But unfortunately, some of that shit can kill.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Dave. We had a lot of viewers tonight. It started off slowly, but
very nice. And next week I'll have a big announcement for everybody here. So tell your friends, tell your enemies.
Are you going to wear a dress next week or what?
I've done that.
You've done that before.
There's nothing. I mean,
that's the truth. Why don't you get that picture so that people next week can see it?
I could do that.
Could you do that for us?
I did it. I did a couple.
And Dave doesn't care, by the way, folks. He really doesn't care if I say
I don't care. No. It was actually.
He's at ease with his dress.
No. What? Now you make me nostalgic for the old days. I lost a bet. Is what happened. I said, there were 2 of us teaching 11th grade, and the other teacher was the director of plays. And I was doing sound at the time for him. And I said, look, I'll make you bet my kids will do better than your kids. Let's just, and we'll pipe it up that way, right? And he had all academic and I had general, but I lost, which is fine. And I said, the bet is whichever one of us loses has to wear a dress. And what we have to do is go around heralding the play. I had so much fun that day, and I was all the way doing lunch duty in my dress. In my dress, and I got a message that the principal wanted to see me, and I said, "Okay, this is interesting." So I go in, and I sat there in my femininity. I looked pretty hot too,
except for the hairy legs.
Well, no, I covered those up. I had nylons on. I had the whole thing.
Would you borrow from Judy? Judy, do you mind if I borrow your nylons?
Here's an actual statement for her. I took one of her dresses. It was clean. She said, "I actually look better in it than she did." And that we were both thin. We were both thin then. But anyway,
I got to ask you that. How did you go to the bathroom that day? Did you just take the whole dress off?
No, I just went I did it. How do women go? Same way. And I'll tell you this: I did have high heels, but I did get my size high heels, so I wasn't. They had some support. But anyway,
you wore a
I go
bra too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I had my stepmother was a nurse, so she had access to mastectomy, bulges, if you will. So I put those on. I was hot. So anyway, I go in, I sit down in the principal's office, and he just looks at me. And so I started playing with my hair like this, and I said, "What?" He said, "Well, like the way you're dressed." I said, "What? And what had happened, Brian, I don't know if I ever told you this. He got a letter, I know who the letter was from, who said, "How can you let that pervert do that perverted stuff?" It was Hutch who wrote the letter to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Hutch was just goofing. And he said, "You have to
Hutch
go
wouldn't
home."
have cared.
Said, well, no, I mean, he was having fun. We were having fun
right.
with him. So he sent me home to change. But before I went, I said, "But I don't really have, well, yeah, I do have another dress." But anyway, so yeah, I did that. I had fun with that. But anyway, they were in later days. Now it's hard.
Now you
this
can't
is
do it, yeah.
no, not that. I mean, but what I'm saying is, but we still everybody say we're gonna end. But even though I said, it's dangerous times, it's deadly times, it's serious times, you still have to have a sense of humor about it sometimes. But just remember that. Keep your eye on Mr. Trump and company, and please think of ways and let us know, let your friends know if there's anything you see that we can do to keep him from the White House or to put Miss Harris in the White House. Right. I don't care which is the same thing. Yep. All righty. Yes.
All
that's
right, folks. Thank you,
Gary,
you, everybody.
yeah,
I mean, Dave,
Gary,
we got such great. I mean, honestly, I'm not pandering the audience. I'm just saying we have a great audience. This is what we want, and tonight was a good example of just great commentary back and forth. Yeah. So we appreciated it.
And just remember, if you like the show, I get, as Trump said, he got 92%. Said that he won. So if you like the show, I'm 92% for it. The reason for it, and if you don't like the show, Brian controls the whole thing.
If you like the show, go on Amazon and send Dave a dress. How's that?
That works. That works.
All right, Dave. I'm gonna shut down. All right.
All right,
so
man.
We'll see you. I'll talk to you during the week.
Have a good week. Have a good week in school, Brian.